My name is Dr. Andrea Pennington. I'm an integrative physician, acupuncturist, and brand strategist. My career in broadcast and digital media spans over 22 years. As past medical director for Discovery Health Channel, I've had multiple appearances on Oprah, Dr. Oz, and CNN, and my TED Talks have reached 4 million people. I've published 13 books in the last few years, and now I work anywhere there's Wi-Fi. For the last several years, I've been helping other healers, doctors, shamans, and coaches from around the world to share their messages with global audiences through personal branding, publishing, online courses, and media training. And what makes this combination unique is that I am bringing my 2 decades of expertise as a professional speaker, author, and coach for other people on their TED-style talks. So I know what it takes to craft a keynote, a TED Talk, and even workshop presentations so that you communicate your message with confidence and clarity.
Welcome, beautiful soul. So lovely to connect with you today. We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Yes, we are actually live on Twitter. Please type into the chat to let me know, where are you watching from? What platform? What country? I'd love to hear from you. And if you're watching on the replay, type in #replay in the comment section. I would love to see that. Wonderful to have Dr. Chuck here from Alabama. Thank you for chiming in and letting us know where you're tuning in from. Wonderful to have you, and looking forward to sharing more of this hero's journey with you and everyone else. Wonderful. Well, I am actually today in the Alps. I live in the south of France, but today I'm a little further up north. I'm in the Alps and super excited to be sharing this masterclass with you. So today we are talking about the transformative power of storytelling. And this is juicy stuff. This can be transformative for you personally as well as professionally. So if there's anyone else who'd like to chime in and let us know where you're tuning in from, I would love that. I am going to be sharing some personal and some professional stories, and I'm going to lead you through the steps of the hero's journey so that you can actually see how you are actually living a heroic journey of the soul. Does that sound good? Awesome. Well, wonderful to have you here. So you are in the right place if you are tuned in for the masterclass on the transformative power of storytelling. We are going to explore how the hero's journey can help you share your story with confidence, and how you can become a powerful speaker or writer, and how you can inspire your audience authentically. We are all about authenticity here, no fakery or any of that. If you are tuning in for the very first time, welcome. I am Dr. Andrea Pennington, Managing Director for Make Your Mark Global. I'm also an integrative physician, acupuncturist, trauma-trained recovery therapist, and I'm the author of the Real Self-Love Handbook, founder of the Real Self-Love Movement, and creator of the Attunement Meditation. If you stick around to the end, I'll also talk about some of the live workshops for speakers and for writers that are happening in July. So, yeah, welcome. I just want you to know that my goal with this masterclass is really to help 2 kinds of people. The first is someone who believes that their story could inspire other people. If you have already healed on your journey and you feel confident that sharing your story in a book or on stage or online could inspire people, could help them transform their lives, then this masterclass is going to give you a simple framework to use to tell your story in an authentic way and to transform the way you think of yourself as you become a hero. Now, it's also transformative if you're not yet healed And you want to start shifting your mindset away from being the victim in your life and to seeing yourself more heroically. Does that make sense? So our goal is to really give you a framework that can be helpful personally and professionally. Now, if you have seen any of those clips in the intro, if you saw my TED Talk, then you might be thinking like, okay, well, you seem super confident, like being a hero, that seems pretty obvious for you, Andrea. But to be honest, it wasn't always this way. I haven't always been so outspoken and confident sharing my personal information online or on stage, and I certainly did not always have a heroic outlook. And so I want to share a little bit of my backstory, and then I will share the 3 keys to really transforming through storytelling. So I want to take you back to about the year 2002. I was the medical director and spokesperson for Discovery Health Channel. And you will hear that in our hero's journey, we begin in the ordinary world. In my ordinary world at the time, I was hosting documentaries, I was anchoring the health news for Discovery Channel, and I was just going about my business. I also was opening up a holistic wellness center with my mother, who is also a physician. And as every hero's journey begins, I received a call. In this case, it actually was a call from the communications director at Discovery Health Channel because Oprah Winfrey had called to see if she could get some footage to use in one of her upcoming shows. This was a time when the whole country was a little bit racked because the singer, Luther Vandross, who was a dear friend of Oprah's, had just suffered a stroke due to type 2 diabetes. And he had been on her show and talked about his diabetes journey and his weight loss journey. And Oprah was so moved that she wanted to show people what really happens in the body, in the heart, when you have a stroke or high blood pressure or diabetes. Now, the interesting thing is, not only did Oprah's producers call the network for footage, they also wanted to see if we had a recommendation for a doctor who could speak to the Black population in America. Because unfortunately, many African Americans had a habit of calling type 2 diabetes a little sugar. Like they would literally say, oh, you just have a little sugar, or I just have a little sugar. And I mean, that almost sounds like a good thing. Like we all want to be a little sweet. But you probably know this. Having a little extra sugar in your bloodstream is not a good thing. It can lead to type 2 diabetes. It can lead to heart disease, even Alzheimer's. So she wanted to have a physician who could speak to the Black population in America. And it was like, okay, this is my calling to step out of my ordinary world of being the sort of doc in the box at Discovery Channel and stepping on. Now, the reason I'm sharing this as a heroic transformation is because when I started working at Discovery Channel, I was coming from the perspective of like, I just want to be on TV. I had always been a performer. I had done the school news back when I was a teenager. I had done community theater and performing. So it was a natural role. I get to be a doctor and play a doctor on TV. But I wasn't really tuning into what makes me unique as a physician or as a healer or as a person. So I'm going to show you a clip that you won't find on the internet because we don't want the whole world to see it, but I want you to see it only because of the transformation. See, that very first time that I got to be on the Oprah show, I was there with Patti LaBelle. Yes, she was also a very good friend of the singer Luther Vandross, and she also has type 2 diabetes. So she came onto the show. But as you can see in this clip, I was in this like boxy suit and I was all buttoned up. And even though I was kind of sharing a unique take on how I describe what's going on in the body with excess blood sugar, I was very much trying to stick to my P's and Q's and stick to my talking points and not veer off. One of the things that happened when we wrapped up the show, Oprah grabbed my hand and Bob Green, the trainer who was on the show with us, and pulled us into the control room, and she thanked me. She thanked me for coming on the show, for giving all of these insights and tips, and I was like over the moon. Of course, I had been so nervous because I'm sitting there with two icons like Patti LaBelle and Oprah Winfrey. And what was interesting, though, was in a matter of weeks, I went from that buttoned up, poorly dressed, trying to look like I was super serious on the Oprah show, to receiving another call. Oprah's producers this time didn't call the Discovery Channel. They called me directly at my wellness center because Oprah wanted to do a return episode about how we can use nutrition to overcome or to prevent things like diabetes, which was one of my specialties. So this time they flew into the DC area and they shot with me at a supermarket and in my wellness center. I described the good, the bad, and the ugly fats and sugars, but they were on my turf. So I felt a little more comfortable to be my authentic self. So if you've been here since the beginning of the broadcast and you saw the video playing, you saw a little clip of me the second time I was on Oprah. And so what happened was I was learning to step into being more my authentic self. And then just a little while later, I was invited by another TV network to share the behind the scenes of my pregnancy and how I worked at my wellness center. And this 4-part documentary series called Simple Steps to a Balanced Natural Pregnancy was released nationwide on TV in America. Now it's on Gaia, on streaming online. And I was learning to step into my authenticity. I was learning with each of these different tests and trials and mentors and allies to really claim my voice and stop being so perfectionistic. But it really was never my personal mission to like share my private business. If you've seen my TED Talks, like that was not my intention. But ultimately, little by little, as I learned to share my story, as I started to reframe how I saw myself, indeed, that is what set me free. Is that making sense? Yes. Okay. Awesome. So now I want to share with you these 3 keys to really harnessing the power of storytelling. And then I will walk you through the stages of the hero's journey. And so for those of you who joined me on Insight Timer and you couldn't see the slides, you get to see them today. All right? So first and foremost, the number one key to really transforming the way you see yourself and the way you tell stories to other people is to adopt a growth mindset. What that means is we can no longer be fixed thinking, who am I to share my story? Like, I feel really intimidated. Now, I am never going to advocate for you sharing all of your business, especially if it isn't healed. But when you start to recognize that that intimidation is because you're a little bit in this fixed mindset, I want you to adopt a growth mindset that says, I don't have to be perfect the first time I share my story. I just need to get it done. And you'll see, my first time on Oprah wasn't great. The first TED Talk I gave was a powerful message. It's now gotten, 4 million views. I'm now getting so many opportunities from it, but it wasn't my best. But every time you share your story, you will get better. The other key to looking at this growth mindset is recognizing that it's best if we are sharing in community. So I wouldn't recommend that you, for your first TED Talk or your first TV show, share your story without having rehearsed it, without getting feedback from a mentor or a safe community so that you can grow into this role. So that is the number one key, is to develop a growth mindset. You're going to get better as you do this. Now, our second key is to trust that your voice is needed. I'm going to hydrate my voice. A lot of people will tell me that they're nervous about getting out there when they say there's already so many other people who are sharing about whatever your topic is. And indeed, that happened in my case. While I was at Discovery Channel, I delivered a keynote speech on the 5 keys to living heart healthy. And after that keynote, I went back to Discovery and started typing it up as a blog. At the time, we had to do our coding in HTML. So picture me, a doctor who had to learn HTML coding. And sometimes people would find little, missing tags, and they would kind of get on your case. And I remember as I was typing in this blog, I could feel a presence behind me. And it was one of our coworkers named Rita. And Rita was looking over my shoulder. And I was expecting her to tell me I messed up some HTML tag. And she said, "That's a book." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is my blog from my keynote speech." She said, "That's a book." She told me before she came to television, she used to work in publishing. And she said, "I can show you how that 5-step plan could become a book." And my mind was blown. Now, first off, I said, "But who would want to read a book by me?" Like at that time in the early 2000s, it was like we were reading Deepak Chopra and Dr. Wayne Dyer and Christiane Northrup. I'm like, who would want to read a book when I'm saying kind of the same things? Like most doctors know how to live heart healthy. And Rita told me something that has stuck with me, and I tell it to all of my clients and students. She said this: "It is true that there may be other voices out there that are sharing a similar message, but they're not sharing it in your voice. And they're not bringing together your unique combination of skills and talents and the way you deliver it." And the reality is, if we're talking about business, finance, health, romance, people don't stop with just one book or one TED Talk. When we are in need of transformation in our personal or professional life, our health, our relationship, or finances, we tend to binge, or we get multiple books and multiple opinions. So trust that your voice is needed, because even if there are other coaches or healers or doctors out there sharing a similar message, they're not sharing it in your voice. And the usual suspects out there may not actually resonate with people like you will resonate with people. The other thing is, people often need to hear things repeatedly and in different styles and tones. We thrive off of repetition and variety when we're learning something new. So don't be worried that someone else has already done a keynote or a TED Talk or published a book in a similar theme to yours. Like for me, I published this book, The Orgasm Prescription for Women, but as an integrative physician with a background in traditional Chinese medicine and women's empowerment and positive psychology, I had a different twist and I speak in a different voice. And so I got so many wonderful messages from women who told me they read The Orgasm Prescription, and for the first time in their lives, they were having orgasms, and they thanked me. Now, if you go to Amazon, there are a whole lot of books on sexual health, but I have a different voice, and it resonated. So I want you to trust this for yourselves as well. Trust that your voice is needed. All right? Now, the third key to really harnessing the power of storytelling is to know that your audience is waiting. So I mentioned before that you have a unique combination of skills and talents. You have a vibe. You have a way of delivering your message. And that also means that there is a unique audience that is waiting for you. I truly believe that when we feel an inspiration, when we feel that calling onto this heroic journey as a speaker or a coach, a healer, or an author, we get these downloads, these inspirations to deliver a message. And I believe it comes from a divine place, and it's in response to a need. There is an audience already waiting for whatever has been going on and gestating in your heart to be born into the world. So please know that your audience is waiting for you. You are the hero that they have been waiting for. The other key here is to recognize that it doesn't matter if you think that the world is saturated, there's always room for a unique take. So just to recap, our number one key to embracing storytelling as a very transformative medium is to, one, adopt a growth mindset. You're going to grow, you're going to get better, and you need to get that first draft done so that you can improve it. Working with a mentor, being in community can all help you. Number two, trust that your voice is needed. We need unique voices in this world that can share inspiration and education in new and different ways. And finally, know that your audience is waiting. If you've received an inspiration or a nudge or a download, just trust and know that an audience is waiting for you. Does that make sense? So, any comments? All right, I'm checking the comment section. Wonderful. So, would you like for me to move on and share with you the steps of the hero's journey? I see one question that comes in. What do you do if your family is still alive? That is a wonderful question. That is something that I had to wrestle with. If you've seen my TED Talks or seen any of my videos or my upcoming podcast, the Conscious Evolution podcast, I share a lot of information about my wounding in childhood. And I selectively chose, number one, the things that were already healed in me. I don't believe that you should use your social media platform or stages or other things as therapy. It's best if it's healed, so you're not breaking down and you're not vomiting emotional wounds onto other people. But I also was very selective in the way I told certain stories, things that we had already talked about in the family where I wasn't going to create undue shame. But I also had to be honest and true to myself. All right, so let's get into the hero's journey. Sound good? Awesome. Let's do it. So, if you've ever studied the hero's journey or read the book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, this is something that I learned close to 30 years ago when I was doing my undergrad degree at Georgia State University. I was almost a double minor. I was pre-med, so I was a biology major, and I almost minored in theater, but ended up doing my minor in chemistry. But when I was in a film class, I was introduced to the hero's journey, because you'll find that this monomyth, this structure that Joseph Campbell discovered, has now been adopted by nearly every filmmaker that we know, including, the Star Wars trilogy and Harry Potter. And I'm going to give you the example of The Matrix, and you'll see how it follows this hero's journey. But I'm also going to share how my life unfolded according to the hero's journey. So there are 4 parts to the hero's journey. It starts off with the call to adventure. And for me, I already told you, the call to adventure was when I was at Discovery, and I got this call that the Oprah Winfrey show was looking for footage and a doctor to talk about diabetes and such. And then the initiation is that stepping over the threshold, leaving the known world, stepping into the unknown. Usually there's some supernatural force, or maybe there's a mentor that nudges you or pulls you across that threshold. And then you experience these new tests and trials and allies as you're learning to transform into the hero. Part 3 is the transformation, where you undergo some major ordeal where you are not like how you started off. You are becoming a new being. And in the hero's return, in part 4, you literally might even be resurrected as a whole new version of you, returning to that everyday world. So we're going to look at this in terms of the matrix. So in part 1, in the call to adventure, Joseph Campbell described across cultures, across time, fables, fairy tales, stories, all seem to follow this monomyth structure. And the reason we use it is because if you want to bypass the mind and get into the heart and soul of your audience, this structure will allow you to do it. If you want to transform as well, because we learn since the beginning of time, we learn better through stories. We learn through myths and parables. This will help you transform yourself as well. So when we start off in the ordinary world, we typically see our hero just doing their thing. So from the movie The Matrix, we see Neo. He's fallen asleep in front of the computer, and we get the sense that he is this night owl, kind of a computer hacker. And he gets woken up by this text on the computer that says, knock, knock, Neo, wake up, the Matrix has you. And then this text that says, follow the white rabbit. And suddenly there's a knock on the door, and lo and behold, the girl that was there had a white rabbit on her shoulder, and he was told to follow the white rabbit, so he does. So that's when we see that he's being called out of the ordinary world. And then we get to the call to adventure. For some people, it's a literal call, like it was for me. In this case, Neo's at work the next day. He gets a FedEx package, and it starts to ring. And it's literally a call from Morpheus, like the master hacker who he had been searching for. And this call to adventure is inviting him to truly leave that ordinary world and step onto the path. But in many of our heroic journeys, we say no. Even though we're destined to become this hero, we can say no and refuse the call. So even as Morpheus was directing Neo on the phone, telling him to turn here, turn there, to get out onto this window ledge, he said, I can't do it. This is just not for me. So that is the refusal of the call. Can you look in your own life? Has someone ever told you, you should start your own show. You should have your own podcast. You should write a book. You should do a TED Talk. And maybe you were like me, like, oh, no, me, who, nah. You refuse the call. But what you start to understand when you look at all of these myths and you look at the hero's journey of the soul, you recognize that we can't actually stay away from our destiny forever. Eventually, we move into part 2, the initiation, and that is the meeting of the mentor. So in the film, The Matrix, part 1, Neo gets to sit down with Morpheus. And this is meeting of the mentor, which could be a physical person like me. I might be your mentor on this journey. It could be that you're meeting with a supernatural force. If you watched my last talk where I broke down Cinderella, Cinderella met with her fairy godmother. So it could be a supernatural force. For those of us who have sat in sacred ceremonies with ayahuasca or magic mushrooms or peyote or any of these others, you may find that that medicine was the mentor that took you across the threshold. Now, in the case of the Matrix and Neo crossing the threshold, Morpheus offers him blue pill or red pill. Do you want to stay plugged into the Matrix, or do you really want to go down and see how far this rabbit hole goes? Crossing the threshold is where we're committing to that change. We're committing to stepping into a new expression of ourselves. And in this case, Neo literally gets sucked into this liquid mirror. And this is when we know that our hero will never be the same. What times in your life can you remember that? Now, also in the initiation phase, our hero is going to be tested. You will meet new allies. You might even meet new enemies. Here in the Matrix, we see that Neo is now, his body is in the Nebuchadnezzar ship, but he's plugged into the Matrix and he's doing a simulation fighting with Morpheus. So you get these new conditions, these new experiments. You're testing things out. It's part of the initiation process. And this is why I have included group work in all of my workshops, whether it's personal development and personal healing, or it's professional workshops like Stories with Soul or Speak from the Heart, so that people can start to embody what it feels like to step into these new roles. And then as we move into part 3 of the hero's journey, it's the transformation. This 7th step is what we call approach. Now, Joseph Campbell, when he wrote about it, he called it the approach to the inmost cave. And what he saw is that oftentimes, think of the superhero movies, like when you're really getting hunkered down and preparing for the major ordeal, you go back to the bat cave, you nurse your wounds, you get on your new suit, you might get new weapons. In the case of Neo, as he was preparing for the major change or his major transformation, he met with the Oracle to find out what was her magic saying. Is he really the one? But she tells him, you're special, but you're not the one. But ultimately, our hero then has to face some major ordeal, not the little tests and challenges we saw in the initiation. In the transformation phase, we're seeing like the major ordeal that is death or life or death. And in this case, Neo, even though he had been told by the Oracle that you're not the one, he saw that he needed to go in and rescue Morpheus. He needed to go hack into the Matrix. And so he does. And this is the ultimate ordeal that we see in part 3. When we look at part 3, after the major ordeal, there is generally a seizing of the sword or claiming that reward, that elixir. In this case, he was literally saving Morpheus's life. And it's when the hero is actually stepping into and realizing, I have a new life. I have this new reward or these new skills. And they are living it, living the transformation. But we're not done with our hero's journey. Ultimately, the hero will return to the ordinary world, either to share his knowledge or his elixir and powers with the people. But the road back is not always smooth sailing. There are new challenges. And in this case, Neo was trapped in the Matrix and he's fighting Agent Smith, as you see here on the screen. There are new challenges. It's not smooth sailing to get back. But the hero has been transformed. They've got new skills. They've got new confidence and new belief. And in this case, we also will see a resurrection. And if we didn't see it before in the transformation, we see it on the road back. We see that maybe the hero nearly dies again. And in the case of Neo, it was this magical kiss from Trinity that helped in his resurrection. So that resurrection is when the hero is making their final attempts, going back to where they may have started from, the ordinary world, but they have a new appreciation and a new mastery over their problem. And then in the final stage, it is the true return where they have fully mastered what they were coming up against, right? So I hope this doesn't spoil the movie, The Matrix, for you. Hopefully it actually inspires you to watch it. Hopefully you'll watch it this weekend. So now I'd like for you to think through your own life. Have you ever seen aspects of this happening in your life where you were called to do something new, but you were maybe scared and you refused the call? But then there was some magical force or a mentor that just gave you what you needed to cross that threshold. And then, yes, you might have been tested. There were new trials, but maybe some new allies that helped you. And then you got to this point where everything was on the line. There was some big challenge and ordeal, and you had to hunker down into that approach, and you did it. You made it through. And then ultimately you had to make the return home with whatever knowledge. We've all been on these heroic journeys of the soul since the moment that you came into this world. You know, in the world of psychedelic assisted therapy, we look at the birth experience as a heroic journey. As you go through each phase of labor and come through the birth canal or you're delivered via C-section, that is a heroic crossing of the threshold. So feel free to type into the chat if there are aspects of your life that you recognize that were like that. For me, I remember when I first moved to the south of France, I was letting go of a lot of the TV work that I did in America, and I really wanted to own my authentic voice. I was a new mother. I wanted to show my daughter what it's like to truly live authentically. But there came this moment where I felt like this rumbling inside. I remember sitting on my meditation cushion and I was just peaceful and zen. My daughter was at school and life was good. But I was starting to feel this unease, like I wanted to get back on TV and back on stage. And at first I thought, oh, that's the ego. What? You miss being a superstar, Andrea? You miss being in the media all the time? So I kind of dismissed it and refused the call and kind of put it to the side. But as I sat in meditation, it kept coming up. It kept bubbling up to the surface until I realized, no, I do have a message. This is coming from my soul. I need to share with people what I've learned in this holistic healing journey from me going from being this in-the-box conformitist doctor, this people pleaser, leading myself almost to the point of burnout, to who I had become. And so guess what happened? I decided, well, if I'm going to come out, I need to rebrand myself. I need people to see me as who I am now, not who I was on TV all those years before. And in my mind, I'm like, what's the perfect way to brand myself? A TED Talk. And do you know, a few weeks after that, I literally got a phone call. I was an adjunct professor at the International University of Monaco, and I was teaching a couple of courses. One was called Be Who You Are, Applied Positive Psychology, and teaching corporate brand management. And I got a call from this lovely MBA, Nazanin, who said, hey, we just got our first license to host our own TEDx. Will you speak? And I'm like, wow, talk about manifesting. That was fast. And that was when I decided to step onto that red carpet and share my truth. And I opened up about my experience with depression and anxiety. I admitted that I had a near-death experience. And I've said this before, that talk has gotten over 3 million views and I've gotten a lot of praise for it, but it wasn't my best talk. And to be honest, the clicker jammed, and when they edited the video, they like cut out a part of one of my sentences. So like if you listen to it, it sounds like I make no sense. So stepping away from perfectionism and stepping into my truth was really this heroic journey that I had to go through. But ultimately, it led to a complete transformation in my career. It led to more book deals. It led to attracting one of my investors and business partners. Hello, Trevor. It led to really launching the real self-love movement in a global way. And it's led to so many different courses and opportunities. And I know that the same thing could be possible for you. So I'm going to check the chat and see what you all have written about. So Nicole Rose says, surviving domestic violence. Oh, bless you, Nicole. Absolutely. That is absolutely a heroic journey you've been on. And bless you for making it through that. You know, surviving anything, any trauma or violence in our lives requires a shift in mindset, as I shared early on in this talk. And one of the shifts is getting out of victim mentality and stepping into hero mentality. So I have some resources that will help you. Some are free, and if you'd like to work with me professionally, I'll show you how you can do that. So one of them that you're inspiring me to share, Nicole, is the 3 keys to becoming the hero of your life. This is a totally free life writing program that I have online. You can visit my website, andreapennington.com, and you'll get a link to signing up for that. This life writing exercise will show you how to use parts of the hero's journey and part of my life writing process with guided meditations, with a specific worksheet that will help you map out your life. So just visit my website for that. And then if you'd like to work with me professionally, this July 8th through the 10th, I'm hosting Speak from the Heart right here in France. It's a 2-day workshop for the intensive, and then we have follow-up that lasts over 6 weeks. It's an authentic speaker workshop that will help you learn how to tell your story and how to embody it with confidence. And we get people out of perfectionism. You don't have to have your speech perfectly memorized. You don't even have to have a speech written. In this workshop, we will help you bring forth the elements of your story. And using the hero's journey as a guide, you'll be able to take people on a journey. And in addition, in our Speak from the Heart workshop, I also infuse a lot of positive psychology and the neuroscience that will help you tell stories that really move the audience. So if you visit makeyourmarkglobal.com, you'll see the sign-up information for Speak from the Heart. And we are allowing the first 5 people who sign up for Speak from the Heart to have a private one-on-one with me. And the one-on-one is valued at over $500. So I'm happy to support you in that way. So just visit makeyourmarkglobal.com if you're interested in our speaker training. If you can't come to France, you can also participate in the speaker training online. We will be doing a live cast of it, and then you can still participate. Or you can come to another one of my live events so that you can practice being on stage. The other thing that I'm offering in July is a workshop called Stories with Soul. It is a life writing and storytelling workshop and writer's retreat where we use the hero's journey. So we start off with 2 days here in France, and that's also in July. That's July 6th and 7th. And then for the 6 weeks that follow it, we have follow-up sessions on Zoom so that you can share your story, you can get feedback, and all of this is helping you to transform personally into the hero of your life story, no longer the victim. And it also helps you learn how to tell better stories. So if you're a coach, a healer, a speaker, an author, you want to use storytelling in your books, in your stories, in your blogs, online, in your live streams, when you're going on podcasts or going on stage. And just to give you some goodies and bonuses, Stories with Soul, which does not start in March. Sorry, the date there is wrong. It starts in July. We have the 2 days of live training, July 6th and 7th, which is valued at $1,500 US. We have 3 group feedback sessions over the 6-week period, 10 guided meditations so that we can work on anything that might be holding you up, limiting beliefs, fear, doubt, inner child issues. It includes a 20-page workbook. So the total course value for Stories with Soul is $2,696. And you get a bunch of bonus gifts. You're not paying $2,000, don't worry. You get 6 digital books and an audio book. And these bonus gifts are so wonderful. They include group books that we have published at Make Your Mark Global and the audio book of my recent book called The Real Self-Love Handbook. All of these are included when you sign up for Stories with Soul. So you get those digital audiobooks, you get my Real Self-Love audiobook, you get my media success course, which will teach you how to tell stories when you do media interviews. And you get 1 private session with me if you are one of the first 10 people to sign up. I need to tell you, though, that there are only 5 spaces left because we offered this on another workshop. So if this is of interest to you, please join us for Stories with Soul. You will find all of the information at makeyourmarkglobal.com. So all of those bonuses add up to over $600. And again, you can get all of that for the very low price of $530. I'm sorry, you can't see that very clearly. Up until June 21st, the cost of Stories with Soul and the Speak from the Heart is only $530. So you're saving big if you join us before June 21st, when the price will go up to $710. Sound good, my friends? Yes. All right. Wonderful. So I hope that this has been helpful, inspiring, and given you a sense of clarity on how you might use some of this. And Dr. Chuck, so wonderful that you've already signed up and you're enjoying some of the bonus gifts. Awesome. I'm so looking forward to hearing about your heroic journey. I know this is going to be healing and transformative for you. So just remember, you only pay $530 for the course and all the bonus gifts. And the first several people, Chuck was one of the first who saw this on another live session. So he will be having a private session with me. Wonderful. So yeah, tune in, my friends. This is a really good workshop and leads to so much healing and empowerment. Has this been helpful for you? Have you learned something new about how to see yourself and how the hero's journey could be transformative for you? I sincerely hope so. I hope that this has been useful and a good use of your time. If you have signed up for the reminders for this masterclass, when I send out the email with the replay, you'll also get links to the workshop. Not only the workshops that you can buy, but also the worksheets, so that you can see how to use these timeline of life events and some of the writing prompts today. Even without joining any of the workshops, you can start transforming yourself into a more heroic version of yourself. All right? So awesome. So Nicole, you've already signed up. You're going to get the replay and the links. Carmen, so wonderful to have you with us as well. Glad that this has been helpful. Really, really glad. So thank you for tuning in and joining me for this live masterclass. If you are also curious about how to find your authentic voice, I will be live on Insight Timer on Friday, June 24th. So it's not going to be broadcast on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. If that's of interest to you, then check out my website, andreapennington.com, or go to Insight Timer and you'll find my teacher profile, and you'll see that I'm leading a live free talk on how to find your authentic voice. And you'll also see that on Insight Timer, if you can't come to France for Stories with Soul, I'm doing a shorter version of the hero's journey with life writing and meditation for Insight Timer, and that is happening as of July 2nd. So many good resources for you at different price points or totally free. This is my commitment to bring the wisdom that I've received from my own healing journey, from working with people with substance abuse and eating disorders, and really just bringing like the best of the best. This process is wonderful if you are someone who is about to go on a psychedelic healing journey, if you're going to an ayahuasca retreat or sitting with psilocybin magic mushrooms. These tools will help you as you're going in, because what we're doing is accessing the subconscious mind, just like you would access in holotropic breath work or in a psychedelic session. So by doing some of this preparation material ahead of time, you'll have fewer surprises of the negative variety when you're sitting in psychedelics. And I also find that psychedelics help us in changing the narrative, because everything I've just described to you is what we call in psychology narrative therapy. By writing your story, by sharing your story in a safe community, it's helping you to rewrite the narrative, shifting from victim mentality into heroic mentality, or embracing any of the other archetypes that you want to embody. That's all a part of narrative therapy. So yeah, it's been wonderful to share all of this with you, and awesome. Grateful to know that you're learning something new and that you appreciate this. Thank you for showing your appreciation. Thank you, Nicole. I'm so grateful to have you here. So be sure to visit me online at makeyourmarkglobal.com or at andreapennington.com, or of course on social media. You can find me at Dr. Andrea Pennington, and tune in. If you've got questions, feel free to send me an email. If you signed up for this masterclass, then you've already got my email there. Just hit reply. I read every email, and I generally respond pretty quickly. All right, my friends, please know this. You are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. I look forward to seeing you again in one of our live sessions. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.